Step into the Incense and Whiskey sanctuary with mindfulness enthusiasts and verified whiskey lovers, Mecca and Ashley, as they discuss all the random topics they love, from mindfulness to memes. This is Ashley.
And this is Mecca.
Welcome to the Incense and Whiskey sanctuary.
Ashley.
Mecca.
Okay, so I want to jump ship for a little bit and talk about family of choice. And I use that word, or we use that word, family of choice. And I haven't looked up the dictionary word, but for me, it's like the people that we have chosen to become family in our lives.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
have
your
our
chosen
family
family.
that we're born into, that are our blood family, that we are relatives by blood and all these various connections. But then there's this family that we have chosen, right? That could be your friends that have become your family, and these are people that you like, your chosen family.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wanted to dive in a little bit about chosen family.
Yeah. I think that, you know what, I think that this is, at least in the Black community, in the African American community growing up, like a lot of us had play cousins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or your mom's friends were like Aunty so and so, you know. I think like this is something that has happened for a lot of different reasons that we don't have to necessarily get into in detail here if you want to talk about history, but for a lot of reasons, I think that this has been going on for generations and generations of adopting individuals as your like family of choice, and saying like, this is not saying like that you're like a sister to me, but like genuinely saying this is my sister, or you know, this person feels like an auntie, like I'm calling my mom's friends auntie so and so, or you know, or in the you know, in some people's situations your mom's boyfriend is uncle so and so.
I never understood that. Are we
That was weird.
right? Call uncle whatever. Okay. No, I do. You know what? In a lot of like African traditions, like West Africans, like they have a lot of aunts and a lot of cousins, and they may not be blood aunts and cousins, but they were all raised together.
Yeah.
And so they became these aunts and cousins. And I mean, being the only child, I'm the only child. I probably have like, you know, a lot of cousins, a lot of aunts that are not necessarily my blood aunts, but have also been there just like a blood aunt or a blood cousin would be, right?
Oh, for sure.
And it's one of those things like, because it's different, right? I was just literally reading this little quote. It goes, family isn't always blood. It's the people in your life who want you in theirs, the one who's accept you for who you are, the ones who do anything to see you smile, and who love you no matter what. And
Yeah.
right there is like powerful, right? Because, you know, we even have our own family members, not us, you know, literally, but just as people that we may, if we wasn't family, we probably wouldn't be fucking with them.
That's true. Those are facts. Facts.
I mean, there's a lot of people out there that you be like, yo, if that wasn't my blah blah blah, I wouldn't even
I
know.
wouldn't even be. And that's true.
And
That is
so
true.
you do want your family, your nuclear family, your blood family to be that people that you absolutely love, but sometimes that's not always the case. So when you have this ability of like having this chosen family, friends that become family members, coworkers that become family members, like whatever the association with your origin of you guys meeting, and then now you're like, yo, that's my cousin.
Yes, I know
That's my
exactly what you
cousin. Or
mean.
like, girl, that's my sister. I hear this
Yeah.
all the time. It's like this immediate, innate, like magnet connection that you have with this person, and that you feel like you're covered, you feel protected, you feel, you know, safe.
Yeah.
Those are the feelings that you want to have with this person. And it goes beyond just like, oh, I have really great friendships with or this tribe. It goes beyond that.
Yeah, I think also while this has been happening for generations and generations, right? It's not necessarily an entirely new concept.
Hmm.
I do think that we're seeing it, at least in our generation or our lifetimes, we're seeing it be embraced more as like a practice or a way of being, I'll say. um and I think there's a lot of factors that play into that. There's a lot of people who are recognizing that there are some like toxic behaviors or traits in their families that they want to depart from, or they family dynamics and structures have changed, and people are finding like these relationships, the family of choice, to meet those familial needs
Mm.
of theirs. And I think that that is more prevalent in our lifetime, in our generation, than it was maybe historically, right? Because historically, my grandparents or maybe other people's grandparents would say things like blood is thicker than water, and but what can you do, their family, those kinds of things. Whereas that's my grandparents mindset, but mine is very different in that, like, actually I might need to create some space and distance here, and blood is not always thicker than water, and those types of things. So I think that there's a lot of factors at play here, and I think it's all to the good. I will say I struggled with this quite
Mhm.
often, actually. I had these like very strong beliefs about, like, well, what does it mean for me to be a daughter, what does it mean for me to be a sister, and
Mhm.
the role of that. And no one, in my opinion, could play the role of like my mother but my mother,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And no one could play the role of my brother but my brother who grew up in the house with me. And I actually, through a few months of therapy, had to like take some time and really think about, like, where did that come from, and why do I believe that?
Mhm.
Because there are situations for some people where they're not getting what they need out of those relationships, and there's no harm in seeking what you need and forming relationships with other people who can meet those needs. So
Yeah.
that took a lot of time for me to think about as well. So I'm behind the curve on creating a family of choice as compared to some other people, but I absolutely see the benefits of it for
Yeah.
sure.
I think I like that what you just gave me. I remember being my first year in college. I was away from my, like, I don't feel like anyone can and I get what you're saying. Like, nobody, there's not like, I don't feel like anyone can replace my mom. But when I moved to I was living in Arkansas, and then I went to California for my first year of college. So I was really away from what I known to be familiar.
Yeah.
So not, and I wasn't seeking out anything. I just wanted to have all these new experiences in college. But I remember like one of my like I don't know if she was like my counselor for school, my academic counselor. Anyway, she kind of pseudo, not even not intentionally, but like pseudo became like a motherly grandmother figure for me, and it was
Oh,
very very warming and very like, and I still to this day have a relationship with her. I still
that's
to this
great.
day will reach out, and we say our happy birthdays, or I gotta see you, or here's a letter, like, because it was so warming. And it was like coming, like you've been out all day and someone comes in with a really nice dinner or a comforting meal. So it was kind of
Yeah.
like it was not necessarily a replacement, but it made me feel good from where I was, right? I was in an unfamiliar city, unfamiliar people, so it was a way of making me feel at home. And sometimes that's kind of how it happens. You
Yeah.
may be away from what's familiar to you, and and then there's people that's placed in your life that can kind of bring you into comforting, and make you feel like you're at home. So I do believe in it. I think that it's needed. I mean, you can have the most wonderful relationship with your family, don't get me wrong, and still have friends that become your family, right?
Yeah.
So even the
Because you've
closest,
created bonds.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
different bonds that you have. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you got to have a family that you just don't necessarily choose with to have this. You could absolutely have an amazing relationship with your family and still have outside blood relations with people that comfort you and you comfort them, and
Yeah.
create these bonds.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a meme once, and I might quote it incorrectly, and I'm sorry I can't attribute it to the person that started it, but I saw a meme once that said something like, you know, we have relationships with ourselves. When you have a relationship with yourself, then you're able to have a relationship with a partner. Then you're able to have a relationship with a network or a family, then you're able to be in community, that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
so it makes me think of being in community with other people as humans. Like that's probably just a basic human need to be in community with others. And so when you
Mm.
do find people that you connect with and you form bonds, those can be just as sacred as the ones that you were born into, and in some instances maybe even more sacred for various reasons or the depth of the connection.
Mhm.
So I think it's about connection all in all, and creating a family of choice has been important. You were speaking about moving to a completely different geographic location. I have long been in Chicago without any family members here. And so, in order to be able to like enjoy holidays here in Chicago, it's been great to recently experience those with, somebody that you feel like is a family member. And that's all entirely new for me because I'm so used to traveling to family to
Family.
celebrate a holiday, and the
Yeah.
pandemic has really forced me to think differently about it. And I've enjoyed it. I'm not even going to lie. I've enjoyed it.
No, I love that. I do. It's one of those things that, do you ever feel guilty?
I have in the very like early days. Again, I had to like really talk about this in therapy. In the very early days, I did feel like, but that's not my mom, or like, but that's not my cousin, like, but but that's the feelings that I have toward those
Yeah. I think
people
that's normal.
are very like they're not exactly the same because that person didn't give birth to me, or like I said, that person didn't grow up around with me and my cousins in actuality. But like the feelings that I have for them are very similar, or the way that we treat each other are very similar, like the healthy parts of it, right? Like
Mhm.
are very similar to the way that I interact with my family, and it's natural. And I think that the guilt is a thought for me, and or an emotion, that emotions come and go, and um but having such positive interactions with people, that's really valuable in
Yeah.
today's world. I mean, in any situation, but in today's world, having connection with people that you understand and who understand you and support you, um that's important and valuable, and we can't ignore that.
I agree. I agree. I mean, it's one of those things that it's so important because if you're not getting what you need from what you have, then it's okay to seek out, like you said, seek out what you need.
Yes, I think that's the hurdle for some people.
That's
And
the
that's to start
hurdle.
ask yourself that. Like really, if you're struggling with being okay with creating a family of choice, like really ask yourself, is there something that I need that I'm not getting? And
I'm not
is that
getting.
is it okay for me to try to find another way to get that? For
Yep.
sure.
I mean, I use myself as an example. I have a problem saying this. Like, being the only child, I do sometimes, I like to see siblings together. It's something about seeing siblings like, oh, that's like your automatic, like, best friend, or that's your automatic friends. I do know that that does not
No,
hold.
it's definitely not always the case,
I know
but
that doesn't always hold true, so I'm gonna just put that out there. But the relationships that you do see, that's like, oh my god, like they are like automatically best friends, or automatic, not even best friends, but just like there's this close knitness, right? You can just let your hair
yeah.
down, be whoever you want to be with that person with no judgment. I did not have that, right? So I had to
Yeah.
seek it, and not to say that I'm looking for, oh my god, I'm looking for my sister, because I feel like I'm a choosy lover, right?
I
Say
like that.
that because not everybody's gonna make that cut.
I
But
like
I
that.
am so thankful that I do have friends that are like sisters, right? There
Yeah.
are a few friends that I have that are like sisters. And I love that. Like, call me on my shit when I need to be called out on my shit, or, or vice versa. It's not like this automatic cheerleader, but it's like a very close bond. And you have, sorry, I live in a city, so you might hear that siren.
Yeah.
Um, and then you have friends that may not necessarily be like a sister, but maybe like cousin energy,
Yeah.
cousin energy, or like that's my little sister. I don't know. I just love those little interactions because regardless if you guys were bonded by blood or by family members, there is this energetic bond that's so much stronger, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because it's something that was aligned. It didn't happen by default.
Yeah, I think that that's an important point, because in those relationships that I have found to be familial in nature, it's because those people are also seeking that type of relationship, that it works really well. And there's also, for whatever reason, maybe it's like self-selection, because we're being mindful of each of our reasons for approaching the relationship in that way, if that makes sense. Boundary setting and maintaining boundaries is not as difficult to me in those situations, or I haven't found them to be as difficult in those situations, because primarily what has brought us together is recognizing a need for boundaries in other relationships in our lives, and seeking out individuals who understand boundary setting and what our boundaries are, and accepting of them. So I find that to be really helpful in that regard, for sure.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think it's amazing.
Okay, this is what I was gonna say. I was just looking at something. You know how all of a sudden, like not all of a sudden, but now you have within our timeline where people are like, the aunties and the nieces. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard this.
Oh yeah.
I'm the
Yeah.
aunties and this is the nieces. So, it's this characterization of this woman that is like, I'm not your mother, but I have great advice and I'm still really fun. And look
Yeah.
at like as your aunt, right? And then the
Yeah.
nieces are like, I'm not your blood niece, but I look up to the advice that you give, and I still can like learn it. I can learn a trend or two from you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've seen that lately, and I think it's so funny. I was just reading like, what does auntie mean in Africa? Auntie is used frequently in countries such as India and throughout Africa, where age signifies dignity and the elderly are considered an asset to the community rather than a burden.
Oh, for sure. I mean, being half Indian, there's like anybody that's not your mom, but kind of like close enough in age to your mom, you refer to them as
It's your
auntie,
auntie.
right? And
Yeah.
that's like a show of respect for like their wisdom, but not necessarily placing them in the place of like, you're my mom, we can't relate kind of thing,
Right,
for
right,
sure. Yeah.
right. No.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So, who's your chosen family? As you guys think about this, and we are in this. I'm all about letting go what no longer serves you, and I'm not saying that you gotta let go of people, situations, but just feelings, habits, or beliefs that are not serving you, and bringing on beliefs, habits that do serve you, and that kind of goes with how you surround yourself. Who do you surround yourself with? Being it your blood family or your chosen family. So just start thinking about like, do the people that I'm surrounding myself with, or that I'm surrounding them with, is it a good representation of who I am now?
Yeah. And tell them you love them. If you know who they are, tell them you love them and that you appreciate them.
And you appreciate them. I love that. Catch us next time on Incense and Whiskey.
In the meantime, take a breath, have a sip.